Hi, I really should have ironed this before I came online, but I couldn't be asked. I'm sorry. I cannot be asked. You're just gonna have to make do. How is everyone today? I'm Empress Justice, aka Fabienne Deacon. If you'd like to check out daily readings, you can check them out on my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you'd like to check out the New Moon in Ardor reading, you can check that out on Empress Justice Tarot Instagram, but you're actually better off checking it out on Empress Justice Tarot YouTube because it's easier to get to. Now, update on me. Everything here has been relatively quiet and, no botheration. Yesterday I was angry, but it was more about being triggered by past circumstances rather than being triggered by anything going on now, because right now, as of this moment, everything is very peaceful. People seem to be getting along. Everybody's kind of cordial with each other. I mean, not with me because I don't talk to nobody, but just like there's no conflict going on. So everything's fine over here. Yeah. Online, though, is a little bit of a different story. So I can't remember what set this off exactly. I think I was watching a video in which a man was just being like incredibly misogynist. He was talking about how women are important and women are this, that, and the third, and how women need to humble themselves. They're not that special just because a woman had the temerity to turn a guy down. And I basically wrote on my status, God is a woman or non-binary. Now, I was being facetious. I was being cute because, this misogynistic bullshit had me in my feelings. But then came somebody online who was a friend of mine, or an online friend of mine, and they took it to mean that I was clowning people who believed in God. And I'm like, okay, so we're doing this. And I'm not gonna say exactly what they said, but suffice to say they were being dismissive about tarot readings and saying, oh, you're just letting a cardboard tell you what to think. And I'm thinking, isn't the Bible made of paper? Like, what? And isn't it made by different writers? Like, I'm confused. But it's like, okay, cool. All right. So instead of using this opportunity to clown and to just basically say, oh, God isn't real, and that, because the thing is, there's a temptation to do that, right? There's a temptation to basically down people who believe in God because, we don't want to feel judged. I use that instead as an opportunity to educate about what the tarot is really about, and about what like using symbolism in order to find answers is about. Really, you're just asking yourself questions and giving your mind an anchor to attach itself to in order to make sense of what's going on in your own head. Because sometimes we don't have the clarity to understand what's going on in our own minds. We're too close to our own minds. It's not a matter of delusion. It's a matter of when we are in our own imagination, we can be too closed off to objectivity in order to properly receive the information that we're supposed to receive. So for instance, having a card pop up like this right now. So Five of Swords is talking about, so for instance, I just picked this up randomly, just picked this up. So usually my interpretation of this based on my own imagination is telling me that the symbolism within this card is talking about people being malicious and nobody really winning at the end of it. It's like it's people being malicious and taking things personally and taking things too far. This is an interpretation, my imagination, which comes from the astral realm. I'm reading it through somebody else's imagination, which they've put onto paper and made tangible, or put onto cardboard and made tangible. So really, this is me giving myself answers. This has got nothing to do with like, just, letting a piece of cardboard tell you what to do. I'm thinking the Bible's made of paper. You're letting paper tell you what to do. People read books. They're letting books and or in this case, zeros and ones tell them what to do. Like, You being dismissive about tarot readings just because it's tarot and it's not something that you believe, it makes me realize that your foundation is probably based on sand. This is what happens when you build your belief around fear and insecurity. You get hyper vigilant and you end up thinking that everything that makes a commentary on God is about you and your beliefs. Now, ironically, I first started becoming interested in magic and tarot and all the rest of it as a teenager. It was just something about the word Wicca, even though I'm not Wiccan. There was just something about the word Wicca or something about the word witchcraft that just like ears pricked up. Like, there's something about it that just made me think, oh, might be something I might be interested in. And I went through periods of being Christian. I went through periods of being atheist. I went through periods of being agnostic. I went through periods of, all the while I was embarking on this spiritual journey, learning about astrology, learning about oracle cards. It started with oracle cards. They didn't start with the tarot at first. And oracle cards are more advisory, whereas these ones are more predictive and more talking about timelines rather than anything else. So there was something about it that made my ears prick up and made me, but it wasn't, it was fear and insecurity that originally gave birth to that belief. Just like in any belief, like when you're pushed into a corner, you need something powerful, something that captures your imagination in order to give you solace in a safe space. And originally, I didn't actually take up that safe space because there was too much going on at home. But I did increasingly take an interest in it. But because it gave me so much joy and it gave me so much, like, over the years, everything that I've been doing, it's been giving me so much joy and so much, actual enjoyment in my life. Now when somebody criticizes it or makes fun of it, it doesn't make me feel bad. It just makes me a little bit annoyed, but it doesn't make me feel bad. It just makes me feel like, oh, okay, yeah, this is happening. Because my belief in the tarot is really not a belief. It's just a method of interpreting what's going on in your own imagination and what your own higher self is trying to tell you. But my love for the tarot, my love for oracle readings, they're not built on fear and misery. They're not built on trying to get one over on someone else. They're not built on having something beat into me. They're not built on trauma. They're not built on anything like that. Instead, it's built on something that I chose to follow. And because of that, like, there's an added joy and a passion that I get from it that nobody can really take away from me. It doesn't matter how much they criticize it. It doesn't matter how much they try to make fun of it. It doesn't matter how much they try to down it. Therefore, when people are criticizing the tarot and criticizing what's going on, if it's not aimed at me, I don't care. Like, if it's not aimed at me and I know it's not aimed at me, I don't give a shit. I really don't. Because it's like, to me, it's like, I know what I believe. I've researched it. I've studied it. And again, it's about enjoyment. I'm not relying on it because it was beat into me or is indoctrinated into me. My father's Christian. My mother doesn't know what she is. And the only reason why she used to say, I'll go to heaven or hell under my own steam, is because she didn't want to improve herself. I can't believe I just said that about my own mother, but she didn't want to improve herself, and she felt like she was being judged the whole time. So she used to say, I'll go to heaven and hell under my own steam, but she didn't really believe it. So I didn't have magic or tarot or anything like that. I didn't have that drilled into me. It was just something that my heart took of its own accord. And of course I had friends that were into the same thing. And the fact that my friendships were toxic didn't mean anything because I still loved it. They didn't believe in it in as much as I believed in it, for the simple reason that for them, it was a way of life and only a way of life. But for me, it was joy. It was beauty. It was art. It was imagination. It was creativity. You know, a lot of people see the occult as a way to empower themselves and gain a sense of power. I'm just a fucking fairy. And that's all there is to it. That's the only reason that's the only reason I even got into any of this. It's because I'm a fucking fairy. That's it. I like crystals and woo-woo shit. And especially if there are pastels involved. I love that shit. So for me, it's about joy, and it's about, you know, being happy. It's not about like trying to tear people down or make people miserable, or, you know, I mean, it can be a good tool for getting justice, but for me, it's not about tearing people down. It's not even about building myself up. It's just about being in it. But what I notice with a lot of people who follow religion, it's not about being in it. Either they were indoctrinated into it, or they clung onto it because they needed to find meaning in a life full of pain. So when somebody comes to attack it, or even when somebody appears to attack it when they're really not attacking it, it can make people feel insecure. And when you lash out of insecurity, to me, it just reveals that your foundation is built on sand. It's not really built on anything sound. There are people who literally have attacked me, have attacked my tarot readings, have come online and said, oh, you need to give that a rest, without knowing what's going on, without even knowing their own religion. And you want to talk about mine? Just because you heard like something being mentioned about the devil. The reason why people didn't like fortune tellers and tarot readers is for two reasons. One is because those types of people used to scam people. And the second thing is that anybody who is self-initiated and not initiated within the secret sects is in danger of giving away their secrets. That's why they use that. That's two of the reasons why they used to sentence people to death who were fortune tellers, tarot readers, all that type of shit. Those were two of the reasons why that happened. First of all, because there were charlatans who weren't real. And the second, because there are those who are uninitiated who actually have the gift. And those who have the gift who are uninitiated, they're a threat to the status quo, which are alchemical fraternities. So really, it's about control. It is not about the devil. It is not about anything like that. But when you're dealing with a belief system that was built over thousands of years of fear, insecurity, and tyranny, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get people attacking alternative belief systems without thinking it through. There are people who have attacked my tarot readings, and yeah, I've given them hell. But the truth of the matter is that, you know, they're coming to me out of their own fear and insecurity. I don't do that to Christians. I don't go on Christians' pages or Muslims' pages and say, well, your beliefs are wrong. I don't do that. Because at the end of the day, it is your platform. Unless you're attacking me directly and trying to be slick with it, I'm not going to respond to you. And the truth of the matter is, I'm not going to assume that you're going to do that, because I'm not being funny. I've got so much shit to focus on as a TI. I'm not focused on people trying to fuck around with my tarot or what. I don't care. Like, whatever you believe is whatever you believe. Stay over there with your beliefs. I'll stay over here with mine. Simple. Simple. I'm a fairy, mate. I fly above the bullshit. I'm a little bi fairy. I fly above the bullshit. I don't care. Okay? Don't give a damn. If you believe what you believe, I believe what I believe. But people have come on my page, they're attacking me directly. I just say, look, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and send them on their way. But this is the difference between me and other people. I don't come onto other people's pages and say, listen, you need to give Christianity a rest because you're not initiated. And the truth of the matter is that somebody like you, who is not initiated into alchemical secrets, or who hasn't initiated yourself into alchemical secrets, you are going to take that book and take it in directions that are dangerous, just like they have been for thousands of years. You're going to take the teachings of that book, which are plagiarized from other religions in the first place, because that's how powerful religions work. They take from past religions, rework it, retool it, and add military power to it. That's how they give birth to new religions. That's how powerful people give birth to new religions. They take from other religions, pour their own new culture on top of it so that you're none the wiser. So there are people like you who are uninitiated into the alchemical knowledge beneath the Bible. There are people like you who are uninitiated, who are approaching people who are either self-initiated or who are initiated, telling them about a God that you don't know intimately. That's the problem that I have. You're not just coming onto my page, you're coming onto my page with an uninformed opinion. Do you understand what I'm saying? And you don't even have the humility to say, oh, maybe I was wrong. No, you don't even have the humility to do that. You just believe what you believe, and you feel like you need to tell everybody else what they need to believe out of your own fear and insecurity. And that's what I can't get with. And people have come directly onto my page doing that. Imagine being so insecure about what you believe. You interpret a status by somebody that you know would never come for you like that. You interpret that status as coming for your religion. And before you even ask that person, hey, what's going on? Why did you say all this? You immediately go on the attack and try to attack somebody else's beliefs, trying to be slick. If you've got something to say, then say it. Let's have a conversation. Let's have an open, unbiased discussion about what one another's beliefs are. Let's have a discussion, but don't come online attacking my shit when you don't know what you're talking about. But again, it's fear and insecurity. That's where it gets you. And a lot of people have so much fear and insecurity inside themselves, they don't know. They don't know. Listen, man. Yeah, they don't know at all, man. They don't know how fearful and insecure they've become. They just don't understand. And listen, man, these people talking about God like that. Let me tell you something right now, man. If I wanted to go online and start attacking people, people ain't ready for me. The amount of shit that I know. But I don't do it because at the end of the day, everybody has the right and the freedom to believe what they believe, as long as it doesn't lead into any genocidal bullshit. Everybody has that right. Okay? I'm sorry, there might be parts of my sentences missing here and there. Havana syndrome is a bitch. But there's something else I want to talk about as well. There was a video that Choice TV made, and he was talking about how Black heterosexual women are responsible for Black bisexual men being on the down low, because a lot of Black women don't like Black bisexual men. The thing is, I'm bisexual, right? And I actually, in my mind at least, I actually prefer bisexual men and bisexual women. I actually prefer them. It's not a rational thing on my part. It's not like, oh, I got to stick to my own kind. It's not like that at all. It's just that, I don't know, I just like bi men and women. I just like them. I don't know why. And, a lot of them are just so fucking hot. But that's just another conversation. There's another conversation. But it's like, I've always liked bis. And as a bi woman, I like other bi people. It's just that 9 times out of 10, they don't really like me like that. And, sure. As a bi woman, I've experienced that the only type of people interested in me are straight men or lesbian women. I've only had one bi woman showing a little bit of interest in me. A little bit. It was a little bit of a flirtation, but nothing serious. For the most part, any experiences I've had with women have been lesbians, like actively pursuing me. They've been lesbian women. Do you understand what I mean? So it's either lesbian women or bisexual, or not bisexual men, but straight men. Now, I have had an experience with one bi guy. And honestly, I felt like, because he used to show me all these photos where he used to wear dresses, and I thought that is so hot. Like, I love that shit. Like, it's like, I've never said this before, but I love that shit. I love men who can play around with their gender like that. I love that. I love the same thing in a woman as well. Like, I love that she can play around with their gender. I don't like anybody who is too stuck on femininity or too stuck on masculinity. I don't really like that. Although, to be honest, I prefer people on more on the femme side. But I don't like people who are too fixed in their gender expression. I don't like it, and I've never liked it. And yet the people that are usually pursuing me, usually they're very masculine and they're very fixed in their masculinity. I don't know why that is. I don't know why I attract people like that. But suffice to say, femmes didn't really seem that into me, and bis didn't seem that into me either. But that's just, there aren't that many of us out there, and it's a lot to contend with. But I feel like what our community, what the queer community is suffering from more than anything is a lack of patience. Because for me, there are not many of us out there in comparison to heterosexual people or people who identify as straight. There's not that many of us out there. And a lot of us, we do get lonely. We do want to feel like we're part of the world. We do want to feel like we're not excluded from the world. We're tired of kind of like being on the down low and skulking in corners and having to hide ourselves away, especially men, because men, bisexual men and gay men in particular, can face misogyny even within their own communities, let alone in the heterosexual world. So it's, you get so tired of having to hide who you are. You get so tired of it. But the truth of the matter is that there are billions of people on this planet. And what I find that a lot of queer folk are guilty of is being impatient. Being impatient and not taking the opportunity to focus on themselves, because I find that with me being Black and like bi and like a bigger girl, and I'm really big, and being like, androgynous as well, I find that it gives me space. And I know it sounds like a weird thing to say, but I have borderline personality disorder as a result of all the trauma that I've suffered in my past. And the one thing that I've always needed is the emotional space to figure things out, just to figure things out, figure everything out. And the thing is, the less people that are pursuing you, the less people that are trying to approach you, the less people that are trying to get to know you, is the more space that you actually have to figure out how you really feel. If there is internalized racism, internalized sexism, internalized queer phobia, internalized, if there's anything internalized within you, then the fact that you don't have that many admirers, internalized fat phobia as well, if you have any of that, or even internalized body dysmorphia where you don't like your body no matter what size you are, not being pursued as much by people, it gives you that space to form a relationship with yourself. Like, if you're constantly admired by people, unless you make the active decision to be celibate, to be alone, to be this, to be that, you don't get the space to get to know yourself. And therefore, your sense of self can be constantly inflated by what other people think of you and by how other people approve of you. Because, you know, you're constantly getting external validation, and sometimes the more you have is the more you want. It's not the same for everyone, but I'm just saying that when you are approved of by the world more, it gives you less space to figure yourself out. And when I was skinny and when people thought I was straight and when I was, you know, prettier, I had more admirers. Not that many, but I had more admirers. I had more going on. But because of that, I didn't have the space to get to know myself, and everything became about keeping that validation up, keeping people on board so that I won't be abandoned, so that they can stick around. So it actually, me being admired like that and pursued like that, it made my illness worse. And I didn't realize that everything about my life leading up to this point was about me getting as much space as possible away from people so that I could figure out who I was. The reason I bring this up is because when you are part of the queer community, your community is small, yes. And the likelihood is that when people find out what your real sexuality is, they're going to want no parts of it. But the thing that a lot of us take for granted in the queer community is that when we're not as admired by everyone else, it actually gives us the room to get to know who we are. I mean, if it leads to a position where we end up being targeted by people, or, you know, how do I put this? If it ends up with a position where we're being targeted by people, or, you know, just having people burned or stoned or beaten or whipped or like anything like that, if it leads to that situation, then, you know, approval from heterosexual people can literally mean the difference between life and death. When it comes to that, I get why queer folks might get impatient and might get, because that's life or death. But if you're not in that position and people still ain't feeling you, then it's better to get to know yourself. That way, when you attract somebody, you're dealing with a higher caliber of human being. That's exactly what happened to me. When I was able to get the space to get to know myself, the quality of people that ended up being attracted to me, way higher than they were when I was ever skinnier, than I was ever, like, the quality of people that are interested in me now, and I'm talking about the ones I share mutual attraction with, not unrequited love on either side, mutual shit. The mutual attraction to people that I'm sharing now, way higher quality. The last woman I shared a mutual attraction with, oh, listen, you talk about a meeting of minds. She challenges me. Like, I'm still talking to her. She challenges me in a way that nobody, male or female, has ever challenged me. And she has such a deft way of doing it. It's like she challenges me on all the shit that I'm talking about. And she really makes me think about myself. And I can't tell you how much I really enjoyed that. But I only was able to meet somebody like that because all the things that made me approved of by society was removed from me. I didn't have that anymore. So it was not like anybody and everybody was coming up to me. I was getting to know myself as a person, which meant that the type of people that would normally be into me when I was like younger or what have you, I didn't want their attention now. Not interested. And then on top of that, when it comes to Daryl now, Daryl actually accepts me. He's straight as die. He's straight as a die. He is completely straight. But like, he accepts me and my sexuality. He's like, okay, I don't entirely get this situation, but like, if that's who you are, then that's who you are. I don't judge you. And he doesn't judge men either. He doesn't judge anybody like that. He's not queer phobic. So the quality of people, because I had the space and the room to get to know myself, it gave me that resilience to not deal with people who weren't serious, who weren't intelligent, who weren't open-minded. Now that leaves me with a very small pool of people to talk to, but it's a worthwhile pool of people to talk to. So this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say I feel that people in the queer community, I feel that people like us, what we lack more than anything is patience. We're still fighting for our rights out here. So what makes you think, that suddenly straight women or straight men are going to have a change of heart about what bisexuality is? That's A. B, just because bisexual women are more likely to be objectified, objectification is not a privilege. And I don't understand how men don't get that. Objectification is not a privilege. It is not a right. It's not a right. Because we live in a world where patriarchy is built on fragile masculine self-image. So bisexual women being objectified in comparison to bisexual men being treated as repulsive. Listen, baby, objectification is not privilege. It really isn't. There is a lesbian couple, very attractive lesbian couple, very attractive women. And they were on the bus and they were just chilling like, couples usually do. They were just chilling, hand in hand, arm in arm. And three teenage boys, I think it was 3. I can't remember the amount of teenage boys that came up to them. But they wanted to force these 2 women to kiss. Of course, the women refused because they're not fucking performance lesbians. They've got a certain orientation that they were born with. They're not fucking performing for anybody. So of course they said no. You know what happened to those women? They got beaten up. They got beaten up. There are women who have rejected men that have been killed. Not even refusing to kiss a woman in public, just refusing a man's advances. There are women who have been killed for it. So what in your mind makes you think bisexual women are any safer? In fact, aren't we twice as likely to be subjected to domestic abuse as women who are straight? And there aren't that many of us to begin with. So how do you figure in your mind, just because straight women don't want to deal with you, that you're more oppressed and somehow it's women's fault that you're on the down low as a man? First of all, men need to be able to control their sexuality. That's a big problem. A big problem is that men as a whole, straight, bi, gay, doesn't matter, can't seem to control their sexual urges. And they seem to be encouraged to just sleep with anybody and everybody, even though there are quite a few men who don't believe in hookup culture. And that's all right. That's not about you, but it's about the way that the masculine is taught to behave. They're taught to spread their seed everywhere. And that translates into, a lot of promiscuity and a lot of cheating. Because remember, down low is about cheating. It's not about being in the closet. It's about cheating. Because the thing is, if you're with a woman and then you decide to have an affair with a guy on the down low, isn't that what being down low is about? Like cheating? Lying? So how do you figure that somebody else is to blame for the fact that you don't have the courage or the patience to develop a relationship with yourself where you can attract somebody who accepts you completely in an enlightened way? Like, how is that our fault? How is that anybody else's fault? Bis ain't into me. You want to talk about it? If I wanted, I could blame the whole bi community for not being into other bi people. I could blame them for that, but I choose not to. Because at the end of the day, it's their preference. It's their preference. Like, there is 7 billion people on this planet. You're telling me you can't find one who accepts your sexuality? Come on, man. Come on. Come the fuck on. You're telling me you can't find one person in your life who accepts your bisexuality? Not one woman. You're telling me you can't find one? Get the fuck out of here. If people don't want to deal with people who are of a certain sexual orientation, and I say this as a queer person, there is no obligation for a straight person to be open-minded enough to gravitate towards whoever they're not attracted to. Everybody, sexuality regardless, has the right to the truth. The truth is not a fucking privilege. If you live in a country where queer people are not being executed, we're not being beaten, we're not being tortured, we're not being, and you know, there's more of a culture now of acceptance, then we have a responsibility to tell people the truth about what we are. We have a responsibility to tell the truth about people, about what we are. And if they don't like us, then they don't like us. There will be someone who does. That is always the way. And if you find that dating is thin on the ground, or start things like that are thin on the ground, okay, fine. Then just get to know yourself. Get to know what makes you tick. Get to know what you're about. Develop a relationship with yourself. Get to know you. Get to know yourself. Get to know who you are. We're alone for a reason. It's not because we're repulsive and disgusting and sick and all the rest of it. It's because Spirit put us on this plane to learn and to teach, like with every other human being on this planet. We were put on this planet to learn and to teach. In our case, we were supposed to learn how to develop a relationship with ourselves so that we're fortified with that confidence and with that, you know, with that drive to move through the world with resilience and the right amount of acquiescence and sovereignty. That's what we're supposed to learn. And what we're supposed to teach is how men and women need to be open to one another, because I have learned a lot in embracing my sexuality. I have learned a lot about both men and women. And there are things that queer people could teach that a lot of straight people would do well to listen to. And it's not just about sex either. It's about listening. So there is a reason why we're all on this planet. And it is up to us to take that and utilize that and use that to our advantage and to use that to the betterment of everybody around us. It's up to all of us, straight, bi, gay, and queer. Listen, we all have a responsibility to learn something and to teach other people and to be open-minded and to be kind to one another. We all have that responsibility. But if there are people who don't want to learn that lesson, not my dog, not my fight, I'm moving on. Simple. I'm moving the fuck on. I don't give a damn, bro. I'm moving on. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was not really about targeting, but it was just about, you know, accepting who you are, accepting yourself. I'm a little bi mage fairy, and I'm not sorry. And I'm happy to be who I am. Ain't no changing it over here. I just wish that, you know, people could just be who they are and build their foundation on joy in who they are and not fear. Because once people do that, I feel like a lot of people will get on with each other more, regardless of where they come from, who they are, and what they do. So, anyway, I gotta go. Peace and blessings. I love you guys very much. And as for me, yeah, I'm still learning. I'm still learning. You know, I've got a lot of internalized racism to get over, a lot of internalized misogyny to get over, a lot of internalized biphobia and queerphobia to get over. But yeah, I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'm learning to be content with who I am. If other people accept me, fine. If they don't, I don't give a shit. They can go deal with their insecurity over there. I'm not interested. I love you guys so much, my fellow TIs. Peace and blessings. Take care. Bye-bye.